Hey guys, welcome back to more political chatter. Today we'll be talking about the 2026 US Senate races and a scenario where it is a massive blue wave nationwide, where Democrats just absolutely blow Republicans out of the water. And it's an idea that it appears, some version of it, it looks more and more likely might actually happen. This is a Trump midterm. In 2018, Democrats performed very well, especially in those House races back in 2018. Just take a look at Iowa. They won 3 out of 4 congressional districts in Republican Iowa. They won all but 3 districts in Arizona. It was an absolute overperformance by the Democratic Party. They won 235 House seats to Republicans 200. And it appears not only that Democrats will meet this 2018 level blue wave come 2026, but it appears that they might actually outperform that. And I keep coming back to this special election that we had a couple days ago in Iowa's first state Senate district, a district that voted for Donald Trump by 11.5%, a district with which just a couple days ago voted for a Democrat for their state Senate. The Democrat won by 11 percentage points. Guys, this was a 22% swing towards the Democratic Party. But it's not just that one outlier. When you look at all of the average of special elections that we have had so far in 2025, they have amounted to a Democratic overperformance of 13 percentage points, 13% overperformance compared to the last presidential election. That is massive. When you look at 2018, the 2018 midterms, those were a blue wave. That was a blue wave year, as I just brought up earlier. In those special elections leading up to the election, it was only a 6% overperformance. So right now, just based off the special elections alone, Democrats should be more than doubling their overperformance in 2026 compared to the last presidential election than they did in 2018. Could you imagine that? That would be an absolute shock to the system. And you can see special elections have actually been good indicators of how the House popular vote goes. 2017, 2018, Democrats overperformed by 6. They ended up winning the House by 9. Similar, almost spot on in 2019 to 2020. Almost spot on in 21 to 22. A little bit of a hiccup from 23 to 24. Democrats narrowly won 2-point overperformance. The Republicans would win the House by 3 points. But still, in the end, it doesn't matter. Nothing like we're not going to see any scenario where the Republicans win the House popular vote when you have a number like this, plus 13 for the Democratic Party. So with that being said, it looks more and more realistic that Democrats could, get their dream scenario, could get a blue wave come 2026, and ultimately they are on track to do something very similar. So just filling out our safe Democratic states, we have quite a few: Oregon, Delaware, New Jersey. In a best case scenario for the Democrats, New Jersey would in fact be safe, even though it was a very weak margin for Democrats in 2024. Massachusetts, of course. Illinois, it looks like it's going to be Krishnamurthy, sorry. I think is how you say it in Illinois. He'll pick up Dick Durbin's seat. It looks like that Royce White is going to be the nominee once again in Minnesota. Let's just bring up his electoral history there. On the same ballot where Harris won Minnesota by 7, Klobuchar won 16 against Royce White. So Minnesota would be safe in the Democrats' best case scenario. Honestly, to be completely honest, Virginia would be safe. Virginia, you have Mark Warner running for another term. Harris won it by 6, not the best margin, but Warner I could easily see doing 10 points better than Harris in a best case scenario video. So there you have Virginia. Now some safe Republican states where Democrats simply will not break the Republican Party. Republicans just have too strong of a grip on these states. Idaho, South Dakota, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, Mitch McConnell's retiring, West Virginia, Alabama, and that's it right now. And then, for Democrats, they also have John Hickenlooper in Colorado, and they also have Ben Ray Lujan in New Mexico. Lujan won by what in 2020? He won by 6. Okay, yeah, never mind. That's too far of a stretch. I wouldn't put Ben Ray Lujan in any stretch of the imagination winning by a safe margin, even in a midterm. So here is the map after safe states. You have Democrats at a lead of 43 seats, Republicans at 39. But Republicans do have quite a few likely states. Why did I not do Wyoming? Sorry, it's 43 to 40. I don't know why that slipped my mind. So, what you're going to notice is that in the Democratic best case scenario, this is my theory. If Democrats want to overperform in 2026, what they need to do is field the best possible candidate in every single race. Now, I know that that may sound stupid and like, oh, yeah, of course they already do that. But no, I'm talking about going into deep red states. I'm talking about Democrats going into Louisiana, finding who would be their best candidate, the former governor, the very popular former Democratic governor, John Bell Edwards. That would mean getting John Bell Edwards to run. That would mean getting Mike Espy in Mississippi again to run. That would mean getting Mary Peltola, the former rep in Alaska, to run. That would mean getting Dave Frudenthal. This is how far I'm going. The former governor, I'm pretty sure he ran unopposed one time. That's how popular he was. I'm talking about getting Dave Frudenthal in Wyoming to run as a Democrat because why not? If you get strong Democrats to run in every single race, John Tester, why not in Montana? Yes, these people would be doomed to lose. Tester in Montana, Frudenthal in Wyoming, Bell Edwards in Louisiana, they would be doomed to lose. But if they're overperforming by 15, 20, 25, maybe 30 points, getting it real close in some of these deep red states, Republicans would be forced to defend their territory. And you always want to be on the offense rather than the defense. Democrats should go on the offense, get strong Democrats to run in every single state. So, point being, when it comes to likely Republican states, this is if and only if John Bell Edwards runs in Louisiana. Mike Espy runs in Mississippi. These proven strong Democrats. Kansas, I don't know who, or Laura Kelly would be a good one, but I think she declined to run already. Someone in Montana. But Kansas and Montana are just likely because they are on that likely to safe sort of side. You know, right on the line there. Florida, completely out of reach for Democrats. Democrats are never winning Florida again. They should absolutely give up on Florida. It doesn't even matter who they nominate. Um, Ashley Moody, the incumbent Republican senator, filled Marco Rubio's seat after Rubio left to become Secretary of State. Florida, likely Republican. So there you have some likely Republican states. And then for likely Democrats, you've got New Mexico, of course, Ben Ray Lujan. You've got New Hampshire. Gene Shaheen is retiring. It looks like Chris Pappas, the U.S. rep, will be the nominee there. And then we get to our 10 most toss-up states. These are the states that will decide this election. And you might notice it's 45 to 45. Reminder, this is a Democratic best case scenario. So, yes, there are going to be more likely Democratic states. What's the first one? Honestly, I think I have this in this characterization right now, even in a normal prediction, not a best case scenario, and that is the state of Maine. If Democrats nominate Graham Plattner, the blue collar working class oyster fisherman or oyster farmer is actually what it's called. If they nominate him, this lefty pro labor kind of guy that people could get behind, it will be a blowout. No Democrat, no independent is going to choose this, Susan Collins, Republican, who has been in there since 1994, 1996 or something. She said she would only serve one term, ended up, and what, she's running for her fourth or something, fifth or something like that. She, and she has, played this whole game like she's a moderate the whole time she has been in office. And like Graham Plattner says, and I would have to agree with him, ever since the second Trump term, it has been clear this is all just a game. It's all fake. She's not a moderate. She voted for like almost every single one of the cabinet picks. She votes for every single bill. She voted for the one big beautiful bill. And she can't play that game anymore, especially in a Trump midterm where you're going to have Democrats turn out to oppose Trump. they are not going to vote for the Republican in this race. Her being on the presidential ballot in 2020 was honestly a good thing for her. But in 2026, you have lower propensity, more independent voters turn out who picked Collins over Sarah Gideon. But in 2026, you're going to have an influx of Democratic turnout, and they are voting to oppose Trump. They will vote for pretty much any Democrat on the ticket. Um, but Graham Plattner is by far the best nominee. If he's the nominee, Maine is likely Democrat. There it is. That is a flip for the Democratic Party. The second flip, I would say Democrats would get by a likely margin in their best case scenario is North Carolina. North Carolina is a quite an interesting race because you have a very strong Democrat against a very weak Republican in a seat that Republicans currently hold. This is Tom Tillis's seat in North Carolina. In 2020, he won by 1.7%, but he's retiring. Trump handpicked Michael Watley, who has a name recognition rate of like 11% a few weeks ago. Of course, that'll increase in North Carolina or something like that. And then for the Democrats, they got Roy Cooper to run. This was an accomplishment, a huge accomplishment by Chuck Schumer. He got the former governor, very popular governor, Roy Cooper, to run in North Carolina, 0.5 point margin. But North Carolina, in the Democrats' best case scenario, easily a likely state. Another one I would add to that list, depending on who the Republicans nominate, is Georgia. Georgia, you have John Ossoff. He has proven to be a very electable candidate, winning in that runoff in 2020. He's a strong candidate. I have him at a 1.3% margin right now. I do think that this race will be close. But in their best case scenario, Republicans end up with like Buddy Carter or who's the guy from Northwest Georgia, the U.S. rep? Uh, the guy who tries to go viral on Twitter every day with like idiot posts. I forget his name. But again, if the Republicans fumble this race, then they fumble this race. Oh, Derek Dooley. He was a former football coach. He's been running a very weak campaign. If he somewhat gets the nomination, this looks like it could honestly be in the, normal realm of possibility, a likely Democratic state. And then yeah, that would be it for likely Democratic states in their best case scenario. No more likely Republican states. Let's go to lean states. So it's 48 to 45. But remember, Democrats need 51 seats for majority. Republicans only need 50 since they have the vice presidency. And in a tie, J.D. Vance cast that tie-breaking vote, the president of the Senate. So now let's go to lean states. Lean states, first things first for the Republicans. Honestly, right now, so Joni Ernst just announced she would not run for re-election in Iowa. That helps I don't know, it's hard to call, and I don't know, but I would guess that honestly helps the Republicans. Joni Ernst, weak, unpopular. I think she is the single most unpopular senator in her state in America. Iowa, I don't think is in reach for the Democrats. I just don't under any possibility, especially with Joni Ernst out. I would have to put that one as lean Republican. And then we have the Democrats. Best case scenario again. I think that Sherrod Brown would win. I think that he would win. He was down by 6 in a poll recently. I absolutely don't think that he will win in the normal grand scheme of things. Right now, I have that race as a 5 point margin in likely territory. But again, it's very possible looking at how the special elections are going, looking at the fact that there is going to be a massive Democratic turnout and depressed Republican turnout come 2026. A Sherrod Brown win could be possible. We'll see how polls change. But again, in the best case scenario, the former senator, it would win this race, absolutely. And then you've got Michigan. This is a traditional swing state. This shouldn't come as a surprise, but you might notice it's a smaller margin than North Carolina. It's a smaller margin than Georgia, two states that are supposed to be more Republican than Michigan. But in Michigan, I don't feel that there is a single person in the Democratic field who would really, shatter expectations, shatter Harris's margin in Michigan. Like someone like Graham Plattner in Maine, or Roy Cooper in North Carolina, or John Ossoff in Georgia, who you just know would outperform national Democrats, like, completely blow them out of the water. I don't see anyone in Michigan with that ability. You've got Haley Stevens. She would probably lose the race. You've got Abdul Al Said, and then you've got Mallory McMorrow. I think the latter two I think that they would. I think that they would both win. In a normal scenario, and in the best case scenario, at least win by 3, 4, maybe 5 point margin. So that comes down to four toss-up states. And then whatever, let's just do the rest. And I'm going to do Alaska here, and honestly, it's tilt in the Democrats' very best case scenario. Obviously, they run Mary Peltola, and even in that race, it's tilt. And I say this mostly, I'm putting a lot of weight into this one poll that was released that showed Peltola down by, I want to say like 6 or 7 or 8 points. It's one of those three. Or I think it's 6 or 8, one of those two. And Alaska polls actually tend to be fairly accurate for some reason. I don't know why. That's just a thing. But that really lowered expectations for Peltola and her electoral abilities running against the incumbent Dan Sullivan, the incumbent Republican senator. So honestly, maybe she's not as strong as we think. Maybe Dan Sullivan is stronger than we think. I would put down at a smaller than 1% margin as of now, a tilt margin win. So now you've got three remaining seats. You've got Nebraska, you've got Texas, and you've got South Carolina. Now, South Carolina, in my video and in my thumbnail, I'm putting Stephen Colbert as the Democratic nominee. I know that sounds interesting, and I don't even know how South Carolina voters in particular would feel about that, or if they even know he is from South Carolina. But could you imagine the nationwide support for Stephen Colbert if he did announce a run for Senate in South Carolina? The grassroots donors that and big donors, don't get me wrong, but the attention, in suburban Connecticut, whatever, suburban Maryland, the outskirts of Baltimore, or the suburbs of Okay, perfect example. The suburbs of Northern Virginia, outside of Washington D.C. Could you imagine the money that they would send towards Stephen Colbert in South Carolina? This race would get so much national attention, but I don't think just because of the partisan lean of South Carolina and the fact that Stephen Colbert doesn't have any true particular ties to South Carolina. He's from South Carolina, but what has he done in South Carolina and established himself as trusted with voters? He's done nothing. With the partisan lean, I would say best case scenario, Colbert outperforms Harris by around 15 percentage points, and South Carolina is a lean state, and Lindsey Graham wins re-election. Also, Graham being so unpopular does help Colbert in that race. So you've got two states, Texas and Nebraska. James Tallarico, the state rep, I'm sure you've heard of him, the pastor, devout Christian, the Democrat, the progressive Democrat, I might add. He just released a video on Twitter. It looks like he's going to run for Senate. In the Democrats' best case scenario, yes, James Tallarico would be the Democratic nominee for Senate. In their worst case scenario, Colin Allred would be the Democratic nominee for Senate. In the most, mediocre scenario for Democrats, Beto O'Rourke would be the nominee for Democrats there. But in Texas, James Tallarico, tilt Democrat. He could win. And this is a big and Ken Paxton would have to be the nominee of the Republicans, which it looks like he is on track to do. So Paxton versus Tallarico. Tallarico is a Christian, devout Christian, very, holy and all that. Ken Paxton is someone who runs on Christianity like all of Texas Republicans, but is involved in all these scandals, just got divorced from his wife, affairs and all that. So Tallarico versus Paxton, I mean, I don't know how it would affect turnout. Democratic turnout is already up, but Republicans who are turning out, I feel like a lot of these, more devout Christian voters would actually pick Tallarico, the pro LGBTQ, the pro gun reform candidate in the race, James Tallarico. Tallarico could win. Democrats should nominate him, and they already have a majority, by the way. In Nebraska, you know what goes down in Nebraska. Dan Osborne, the independent candidate in Nebraska, would absolutely win. In their best case scenario, the Nebraska Democrats have endorsed Dan Osborne, the local labor union leader who ran in 2024. He lost that race against Deb Fischer by 7% when, get this, Harris lost the state by 20. He outperformed Kamala Harris as an independent by 13 percentage points in 2026. Let's say let's say the partisan lean of Nebraska voters in 2026 is Republican plus 10, okay? Let's say 55% of voters that turn out are Republican leaning, 45% are Democratic leaning. 10 point. Instead of 20, it's 10. If Dan Osborne outperforms once again by 13 points, then he is elected senator just like that. In Democrats' best case scenario, Dan Osborne, the independent, the leftist, at least economically leftist, labor union leader, would steal that seat from the Republicans, vote with Democrats probably almost all of the time. So with that final tally, 52 to 47 to 1, Democrats win Senate majority. They win it by a very comfortable margin, 5 seats, rejecting Trump of a trifecta in Congress. So there you have it. Best case scenario. A prediction by no means. Obviously, not a prediction. I'm sure someone will screenshot this and post it somewhere. This is not a prediction. Best case scenario. I hope you all enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't already. Let me hear your thoughts about this in the comments, and I will see you all later.